Voice leading.
Hey everyone, Aiden Chappell here. Have you ever spent time writing a song and just couldn't find an easy way to make a transition to a new chord as smooth as you want it to be? I think as guitarists we've all been there before, and we tell ourselves that we're just not blessed with the songwriting gene like some of our favorite artists are. But I figure that cannot possibly be true. So I recently read a book written by a man named David Huron, and he describes this process of voice leading. Voice leading is moving to new chords in the smallest intervallic movements possible per voice on the instrument. And I want to talk about this theory, I want to play with this theory, and most importantly, I want to prove that this theory is useful to know for guitarists and music appreciators alike. So what does this all mean? Well, voice leading is a term used in music to describe how melodic and harmonic instruments can play harmony and move through chord changes in as few intervals as possible while maintaining independence of the voices or instruments used in the piece. Voice leading can help us sound smoother and more connected to the music we're playing while ensuring that our chord changes do not cause any jarring effects to the listeners. So an interval is the distance between two notes. In voice leading, we want to move to new chords with the smallest interval jump per note in the chord. So here's an example of a chord progression on the guitar. In the key of C, we're going to go from C to F to E minor to A minor to F to G and back home to C. Sounds like this. But if we followed voice leading procedures and say maybe a choir was singing it, the progression might sound like this. I introduce to you the Aiden Chappell Choir.
Voice leading can sound like this.
Okay, now choirs are great, but we want to know what the guitarist's role is in all of this because it's coming from a guitarist. Well, jazz is actually a style that really lets voice leading shine. So let's use a simple 2-chord vamp to demonstrate how we can approach voice leading. In the key of G, we're going to play a vamp using our 1 and 4 chords. So this will be G major 7 and C major 7. The notes in G major 7 are G, B, D, F sharp, and in C major 7 we have C, E, G, and B. You'll notice that G and B are common to both chords. We can refer to these notes as common tones, and we don't have to change where we voice these notes. All we have to change is the organization of the remaining 2 notes in each chord to move between each other as smoothly as possible. So let's take a look at that would sound like. Okay, now let's contrast to how this would sound like if we simply move this chord shape up so that our root would be on C instead of staying on the common tone of G. So now that we have a baseline understanding of how we can incorporate voice leading on the guitar, we can begin to actually implement this theory into more complicated progressions. So let's talk about the 2-5-1. The 2-5-1 is a progression that occurs everywhere in jazz music. It's super common, and it's a great idea to know how to play it in a variety of different ways. So in G major, we use the chords A minor 7 to D dominant 7 to G major 7. Now once again, let's compare how this sounds without the voice leading, and then compare it to how it sounds when we use voice leading and common tone movement. Okay, so let's further play with this idea. Let's substitute our D7 chord for an A minor 7 flat 5, also known as A half diminished, and see what kind of color we can bring to this 2-5-1. Here's what it would sound like. Pretty cool, right? So using this substitution on the 5 chord helps keep everything very smooth, since we're only using, we're only moving one note for the 5 chord. And if we're playing with a bassist, we can leave out our bass note in each chord, creating space and making the sound tighter and less muddy. Anyways, that's voice leading. Hope you're able to learn about this theory in this presentation. But wait, there's more. Voice leading isn't just a tool we can use for harmony. We can also use it for melody. So in jazz, this means improvising our solos. Voice leading for melody is all about targeting chord tones. Okay, what are chord tones? A chord tone is simply a note found in the chord we are playing. If we look back at our previous 1 to 4 progression in G, we have the notes G, B, D, F sharp in our 1 chord, and all of these notes are chord tones. So if we're playing a solo using the G major scale, and then we move to our 4 chord with the notes of C, E, G, A, we can target the closest chord tone on the downbeats of the new chord. This may look something like this. Okay, now that we understand how to choose notes for a solo or an improvised melody, or even writing melody, we can dive into the 2-5-1 progression now and see how we can use voice leading over chords with many common tones. We may choose to target the chordal 3rd and 7th, for example, to really outline the harmony between these chord changes. This could sound like this. Now that we understand voice leading for harmony and melody, let's combine our knowledge into a chord melody. For this example, I'll be performing Autumn Leaves. I want to offer some tips for practice for any guitarists who are watching this. For the diatonic 2-5-1s, we can play over the changes with scale starting on the 2nd, 5th, and 1st degree of each scale over the relative chord changes. We can treat each scale to its modal equivalent, so Dorian for the 2 chord, Mixolydian for the 5 chord, and Ionian for the 1 chord. Practice slowly and often focus on smooth transitions between chords, and take the time to really map out various ways to move smoothly between chord changes. Practice with a metronome to internalize the sound of smooth movement and include backing tracks to a variety of musical examples when practicing this melodic voice leading. I hope all musicians and appreciators of music were able to learn something from me today, and I hope this causes you to listen to music in a different way and to understand it at a deeper level and to appreciate these musical nuances more. This has been an introduction to voice leading from a guitarist's perspective.